Can't do that. We've done that before. That's not fun.
Welcome to Envision Radio from United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise and News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA, and brought to you by the Jefferson School Foundation with Markiana and Price here in the studio right here downtown. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Justin Reid, a social change investor, public historian, and co-founder of Griffin Blvd Archives, a rural sustainable development and cultural heritage advocacy and support network in South Central Virginia. But most excitingly for me, our next interview on this episode of Envision Radio.
And graduate of the College of Women Married.
Oh my God!
Thank you.
Not two tribes.
Thank you.
On today of all days.
Yeah. It's going down. What time? This is. We're in the morning, so in about 5 to 6 hours.
What are the odds
we will
that
be
Women Married
celebrating
wins?
Triumphant victory in Charlottesville?
If y'all win,
y'all gonna have to hear about it.
300 years.
Forever.
A lot could happen. You never know.
Forever.
Actually, I don't mind.
Look, we're gonna throw it back to
throw
it back to 09. Shout out to RJ and B-Dub, Eric, all the boys. We're gonna do it again.
There would be no UVA without William and Mary.
Oh, okay.
That's also true.
Okay, well,
that's also true.
William and Mary inspired the creation.
That's right.
I can't. I'm not gonna be able to get through this
interview. Have your own
interview.
ideas.
Yeah.
Jeez. Good grief.
Well, I'm proud of y'all. You're not gonna win today, but I'm proud of y'all.
I have a lot of tribe pride, and at the same time, the state of higher ed right now makes me.
It's
really
crazy.
sad.
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy.
And not that it was.
You
great
can't even go to
when I
a
was in
university
school.
safely these days.
I mean, it's and the whole. It's hard to. I was reading a thing about this guy George Mason now, and there's that
The president.
Yeah. But there's all. It's such a complicated ecosystem, and even some of the stuff that's happened locally. I mean, it's so.
Yeah.
It is sad in my eyes to, and again, this is sort of the theory of everything, but to overly politicize something that seems just like something that should be, if anything, is to be relatively pure. Could it not be like a theory of education? Like people should be able to learn. They should be allowed to like. Once we've lost the plot on that,
education should be funded.
Even that kind
That's
of thing,
controversial,
right?
Education should be high quality. Very basic things that should be agreeable to everyone.
Which people say cool, and then you go for everyone. They go, well, you had me. You had me until the end. And I don't know. I mean, I think that I haven't really kept up with a lot of the sort of the William Mary's sort of version of that, but I don't know. Maybe you have. I mean, if they get
talking about William Mary before we jinx them. They haven't been in the news.
Stay strong.
They're not having problems with their board.
They're too small. They just hang out in Colonial Williamsburg doing their thing.
They said no one's rolling off, and we're not gonna have any problems.
Yeah, we got a nice business school down there. We'll be all right. How are things? We had your better half on here. What, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago maybe.
Yeah, I think this is. We need to go back and look at this because we have had a few
partners.
Yeah.
I kind of wish
only the best of the best though.
We had been on together.
That'd been fun. I've never thought about us partners being on at the same time.
All right, now we're gonna do that.
We're gonna do it now.
I think we have a good dynamic.
Yeah.
We balance each other out well.
Okay.
I listened to her interview. I'm like, oh, now I have to go on after.
Yeah. See that? Well, that's the thing. That's the problem when you have a very accomplished partner. You're like, oh, y'all should have had me. You should have done me first.
You want to say you got a Nobel Peace Prize?
Right. I'm just gonna start lying to the people. Like, well, I'm also a pediatrician and an author and a researcher.
But it works. I think our personalities complement one another's. I think kind of our career trajectories have complemented one another. So
yeah,
you see a lot of situations where both partners are physicians, and then they basically have to hire a whole team to take care of their family. And it's like there's this constant hustle and bustle all the time, and nobody can even spend time with their kids. Whereas I feel like we've been able to find a balance that works.
Yeah, you can enjoy
a lot
it.
of that balance is me not being in the medical profession.
Yeah. No, you can't enjoy it. I mean, I think, and we talk about this a lot, kind of, particularly for people at our age, that like, there's this, I think as you get a little older, people start to get squirrely about like where their career is, just for, because, I mean, we live in a very comparative era, right? And I think it's interesting someone asked me the question one time, they were like, okay, but like, what are you optimizing for, right? If you're optimizing for money and status, okay, do that, but you do that at the expense of, you're going to miss soccer games, you're going to miss, the apple orchard field trip or whatever. in the same way that, like, if you're optimizing for spending time with your kids or doing
is that the word they use? They said optimizing?
I don't know. I barely know what that means.
What are you optimizing for?
That was how the question was posed.
Really? That's how Price talk.
Yeah.
I was like, casual conversation. That's what they asked you. Like,
that's what
are you optimizing for?
It was an interesting question because then, on the day, not going to a thing, but going to the kindergarten field trip to Carter's Mountain, like that's what I want to. That's what I want to do, and it's and so I think that's an interesting. As families get bigger and more complicated, and jobs and all this stuff gets a little bit more complex, it's an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that I think about all the time, for sure. Right now,
can you take us backwards to take us forward?
There you
we
go.
Start every show.
We start in the same place.
Similarly,
We start in the same place.
But tell us a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, and how growing up and how you got to where you are.
So. I mean, I grew up in, depending on who you ask, either Central Virginia or South Side Virginia. And so I say South Central. I'm trying to make South Central work.
Central, okay.
But the easiest answer is I grew up in Farmville.
Is that where Longwood is?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Longwood Universities. It was a public university in town. So yeah, we're a small college town. Hampton-Sydney College is a private school right outside of town. My family's from Buckingham.
Okay.
I grew up technically in Cumberland County, which is like right on the Buckingham line, but also have family from Prince Edward County. So those are the three counties that surround Farmville. So the easiest answer I've found, especially since coming to Charlottesville, is that I grew up in Farmville.
Yeah, I think that's super. Like that feels super familiar. I'm like, I know
Farmville?
exactly where that is.
Yeah.
I feel like, I know Buckingham too. I used to go to Buckingham when I was growing up. Cookouts, that's my spot.
I spent a lot of time in Buckingham. Still have family in Buckingham. My family is in the funeral home business. And we don't have to get into that today unless I really want to. but there are two locations. Bland Reed Funeral Home in Farmville, and then we have Reed's Funeral Home in Dillwyn, which is in Buckingham.
Okay. Yeah, but I think I've heard that one.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Buckingham with family. So, I grew up in the country. I grew up in the same community that my parents grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
The house that I was raised in, I lived there my whole life, and it was 2 miles down the road from where my father was born.
Wow.
Wow.
So, I had the benefit and privilege of spending a lot of time with my grandparents, my great aunts and uncles, a lot of cousins running around. Like a lot of times I feel like, I guess I'm like mourning my childhood because I see what my children experience now, and even my nieces and nephews. And I feel like maybe I was like the last generation in our family to kind of have that pre-digital age, pre-social media, like very cohesive, rural, always outdoors kind of childhood. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me before, I was in a parenting class, and all these parents were there. We were like reflecting on, I guess like parental involvement and early memories, and I was like struggling to remember some things because I realized a lot of times there were like no adults around.
That's super interesting.
Yeah,
right?
like we were just outside, and we came inside to eat. Yeah,
I feel like my younger years were pre-digital, but not my upper years, obviously. But my younger years, I was at my grandma's house outside.
Yeah. Like
listen,
we used to beg my grandma to let us in the house. Like,
call it what it is.
Yeah,
call it what it is. Millennials were the last great generation.
Great.
Period.
We had the best. We had the best.
I don't know. Write that what are the years for the millennials again?
82 to early 90s.
Okay, because I'm 97.
Ooh, I think you might. It might be 96.
You might be X.
Because I remember
millennial age.
Being at my grandma's house in the country. I'm from Orange County.
Yeah,
and she had a TV.
81 to 96. You're out.
Ah, no.
You're out.
I was almost a part of the best.
You're out. You're fully Gen Z.
Oh, okay. Well, not fully. I'm a cusp.
You're in there.
Yeah. Guess what? It was January 24th, 1997.
Oh.
So 20.
I wonder if there's like
days.
I wonder if there's like a grace period.
But you know what though? I mean, I'm not sure where in Orange County you was, like what like the technological infrastructure looked like at that time. But there was a period where. Despite your age, depending on where you lived in a rural county, you didn't have fast internet.
That's true.
You didn't have cable or
I don't
satellite.
think my grandma had no internet. I mean, I guess she did because she had cable. I don't know.
Like there were
those things that weren't all connected.
Okay.
There was an era where there was two distinctly different things. Right? The cable box was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate to have had the the childhood that I had. My parents, among their siblings, they were the only ones that returned to Virginia. And so all of my aunts and uncles settled in the New York area, settled in Philly. My parents were in New York for a while, but by the time I was born, they came back. And the narrative I grew up hearing was that they wanted to help take care of my grandparents. Like, they wanted to be there as they age. Now that I'm a parent, I realize they probably just needed help.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Two things can be true.
Yeah,
Two things can be true.
That's true. But like the amount of time
grandmas was watching kids. They was child care.
Yeah, so that drew them back from New York to Farmville. But I think as a kid, I used to always ask, like, why do we come back here? Like, we could have been in Atlanta, we could have been in DC, like all these places, Charlotte, places that my dad had opportunities to pursue. And that used to make me upset, because at that point in my life, I wasn't proud to be from where I was from when I was growing up.
You mean like Farmville?
I wouldn't say not necessarily Farmville, but I just felt like, like when I would go to Jersey, like
Virginia.
Sure. Like when I would visit my cousins in Jersey, they was having a good time. Like when I would visit my cousins in Philly, like we could have been up like.
This is what we could have been living like.
Yeah. Like when I would go to Philly, we'd go to like 76ers like basketball camps.
Oh,
and then,
okay, yeah.
My cousins would come to Farmville. It'd be like Vacation Bible School, and, like revival. Like,
yes.
Like and so for a long time, I didn't have the pride that I should have, but I do have it now. Like, you ask anybody, I go hard for Farmville, for Cumberland, Prince Edward, Buckingham. I have some family roots in Fluvanna as well. But I think there's something really, really beautiful about growing up in a rural setting that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, I think we have a societal problem about how we talk about the South. Especially for Black people. It's like, well, you should have left. You experiencing all these things. Why didn't you go? But maybe the North is just racism in a top hat, and you ain't ain't doing better than me because you in Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think people have.
I wanted you to get there, but I've been instructed to make sure that we say that if you're just tuning in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price Markey here with Justin Reid. And again, big thanks to our sponsor and friend, the Jefferson School Foundation, jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. I'm not going to hold you. Go.
Yeah, I think that we have a problem about how we describe the South.
Yeah. 100%.
Why people are here, like why don't Black people leave when the policies aren't right?
Yeah.
You could just get up and go, and that's not people's reality.
Yeah.
So I think having that feeling as a child is understandable.
Yeah. So we have a problem describing the South. We pretend as if a lot of the issues in the South don't exist in the North.
Yep.
And then even when we talk about the South, my background is in civil rights history. A lot of times, even when we talk about that history in the South, we are only emphasizing the urban settings, and so we're talking about the Atlantas and the Birminghams, but forget the amount of organizing and the infrastructure that was really developed in rural places. And all the history is connected, to periods beyond, like the civil rights movement, like the Black Panther Party and the Black Power era. Those were rurally birthed movements. You had students from the rural South moving to California. You had students from, independence era African countries moving to California, and they're on these college campuses together. One student from the rural South, a long tradition of self-defense. One student from West Africa whose parents are involved in the independence movement, bringing these internationalist ideas. You marry those two philosophies, and what do you see? The birth of the Black Panther Party. And so, like, there are these really interesting threads that connect back to the rural South that really don't get the attention and the credit.
Were you always interested? When did you know you were interested in history? Was it a childhood thing? Did you get to college and start learning about the infrastructure of racism? Like,
when did I become interested in history? I don't know if I've always been interested in history, and I don't know if I'm all that interested in history right now. I think I've been interested in culture.
Okay.
I think so I was joking about like Vacation Bible School early, but I remember being
Listen, we've all had that experience. Did you go to Vacation Bible School?
Yes, I
was about to say we've all had that
did.
experience.
For folks that don't know, Vacation Bible School was
such a good
when
time.
they felt like the most fun thing you could do during your summer break was to be in church every day.
Every day. Every single day.
It was
in
so
the
fun.
heat of the summer.
I can't imagine it being fun now, but I was having a good time.
But
they used to give us
like
popsicles.
leaving the
We
pool
were having a good time.
and then like
I don't know if it'd
making
be fun.
Christ crafts.
Because if you didn't have internet and you didn't have phones and social media,
That's true.
it was fun.
That is true.
You know, and
everybody was there. Like it was where the people
was the
were,
cool
right?
kids club for
yeah,
sure.
it was.
Yeah, so I'll say this, like my one of my cousins used to teach my Sunday school class. I remember this like clear as day. I might have been like 4, and she told us that there were cities in Africa as big as New York, and I used to like tell people like, did you know this? Like, did you know that there were like cities?
Yeah.
And like I think that was kind of like the opening up of like my desire to like know more about different cultures. And I think even at that age, you know, the fact that I was so surprised, I can reflect now and say I had already internalized certain misconceptions about you know, the African diaspora. So I think that might have been maybe the earliest memory as I sit here and reflect. But you know, a lot of my friends who work in history, I feel like we have similar stories. It's like we were the grandkid that spent the most time with our grandparents for whatever reason. And so it's kind of like we were like, I was about to say we were stuck, but not.
Yeah, sure.
But I never felt stuck. I love going to my grandparents' house. But I think we absorbed that. Like my grandmother, I consider her to be a historian because she was the clerk of my family's church for like 30 years. And so she was responsible for that record keeping. And I used to watch her like meticulously, you know, edit and rewrite, you know, her minutes at night. Her home was like floor to ceiling family photographs. You know, and I remember like she would talk about her grandfather. We call him Reverend Jake. So, you know, Reverend Jake was born enslaved. My whole life, as a kid at least, I didn't know he had been enslaved because she never talked about that aspect of his life. But she shared her childhood stories about him and, you know, going to his home and being really proud of, you know, the work that he was doing in the community. And so, like, to hear those stories and, you know, to see these pictures on the walls, I think, you know growing up, some people joke and refer to my grandmother's house as the Black History Museum of Cumberland County.
I love that.
And so I think that early imprinting is probably what you know shaped me the most.
Talk a little about William and Mary. What did you study there?
So I study a lot of different things. But it's connected in my mind, at least in my.
Because I was doing a little marketing, I was doing a little math.
You know, I started out in natural relations, so like let's like even connect that thread to when I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
You know, finding out about these African cities to my time at William Mary. You know, I was a declared international relations major, and actually changed my senior year. In my senior year, I became an American Studies major. And I had a minor in global studies, Africana studies. It sounds like outrageous. Like I had some incredible mentors that helped me make that switch at the last minute. But it felt right. You know, it was a time in my life where I was, I guess, growing into my own consciousness, becoming more appreciative of my own culture and history, and also seeing the parallels in what I was learning about, you know, studying things happening abroad in other societies, seeing those parallels in my own community. And I think the thing that was really kind of the tipping point was when I had the chance to study abroad in Cape Town, South Africa, the summer before my senior year. And there was just so many things that I was doing and learning about there that reminded me of home. And, you know, there was almost like a guilt emerging where, you know, just reflecting on the fact that here I was devoting all this time and energy to things happening abroad, when I could be investing the same amount of time and attention to things in my own backyard. And I think that's kind of when the light bulb went off. And, you know, again, fortunately I had mentors and faculty members that were willing to sign those papers.
I was like, it does seem insane. Like I
Yeah.
think, but you you did that after you came back from your abroad.
Yeah. But my William & Mary experience, I think it was mostly good. I got involved in a lot of student activism when I was there. Learned a lot of hard lessons when I was there. I'm appreciative of it. Like I didn't consider UVA for a lot of reasons. One of which, my brother-in-law played football at Virginia Tech, and I grew up. I grew up.
It's ruining families.
Yeah, I grew up in a Hokie family.
Okay.
But I knew I didn't want to go to a school that was as large as Tech, even though I have a lot of love for Virginia Tech. But yeah, I was raised from an early age that UVA was not where you go. So yeah, I have tried pride at the same time that I have critiques of William & Mary and higher ed in general.
You get to critique a thing you love. You don't really love
Well,
it if you ain't
should
critiquing
be
it.
able to.
You don't really love it if you're not
certainly
really
should
critiquing
be
it for
able
real.
to. I mean, I think that there is a little bit of that view too. In all of our work, that
Yes.
the view of, I think, a lot of folks is sort of capitulation and not this kind of consistent growth, right? And I think what's interesting and what you mentioned even about your relationship with your partner is that I feel like relationships have to be like that, right? The best relationships are the ones that you feel both sort of challenged and supported at the same time. Where we have to the thing, and I think about that even in parenting. Like I don't know what I'm doing, but it's helpful to have someone who will tell you when you're like, that was because the goal of the thing is to do the thing better.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right?
And you can't do it better if everybody's capitulating to you at all
the time.
Exactly.
All the time.
All the time. And I think to a degree, and I think to your point, like some of that is how sort of some of these systems begin. I think there's occasionally this view that some of the operationalization of these systems is like nefarious. It's like, and I think to a degree it could be or could have started that way. But I think in a lot of areas, I'll speak for Charlottesville, like the people who are doing these things, I think generally want them to work or they want to do something that's positive and pro-social or whatever. I don't know that I can think of many instances where we would look at each other and be like, that person just kind of sucks, right? Like that's just a bad actor. I think sometimes it's like we're trying to do the right thing. But I think to a degree we have become sort of a genial area that's not good at being like, hey, I know you're trying to do this thing well. It's not working, right? And we have to be honest about how we support that and move that forward instead of just being like, well, it's hard and we're doing our best. That's how you come out with a very rich town and a lot of kids who can't read.
Right.
That was like a very deep, interesting kind of pivot you did there.
Go ahead and do the.
Well, you were talking about your critique. Oh, I do. I have a question for you. But I do have to do this. Thank you.
Well,
I do have a question for you.
Love, like real love, real pride should also involve a certain level of critique. And I think, ability to be candid.
But before we get back to that, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price, Markey, Justin Reid here. And again, big thank you to our sponsors, our friend, the Jefferson School Foundation, where education, innovation, and community engagement come together to build a brighter future. JeffersonSchoolFoundation.org. Where I was going with that was your work at CACF, right? And talking about, we've had these conversations online, offline, and as, both sort of like practitioners and also people and dads and the whole thing, but about that kind of movement building and like what that means and sort of how that plays into exactly a little bit about that conversation of like, we can be in a place where we say we like it here, we are intentionally here and raising our kids here, but also, right, and so how does that map to the work that you're doing at the foundation?
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting. Yeah, it's been really fascinating. So I've been at Charlottesville Community Foundation for about 2.5 years now, and my background, or maybe like 2 careers ago, was like civil rights, public history, and so like the work I'm doing at the Community Foundation now is really kind of applying my previous work in civil rights history to contemporary parallels and issues, and so it's been really fascinating to see the similarities from our past and present, and then it's how do I want to frame this? I'll say, I mean, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I think one of the things that is different right now is the lack of cohesion. I think that you saw, or the cohesion that was almost maybe forced because of segregation in the past. But there was a certain level of cohesion that existed. I think particularly like, where I grew up in other rural, black belt regions where you had a significant number of black residents, that we're thinking right now in a black-white context. You're talking about counties that were majority black, who were doing a lot of this, rural organizing historically. And in Charlottesville, in this area, you have a black population that's dwindling. And so you have declining cohesion, declining numbers. And then at the same time, you're kind of up against kind of mainstream dominant culture that is shaped by individuals inspired by the legacy of Jefferson. Like it's an interesting dynamic, but at the same time, I've been really encouraged and inspired, but by what I'm seeing happening here as well. Particularly from the folks that like are born and raised, grew up here in this community. I remember when I first got here, it became very clear to me, and I guess that's maybe something that's an issue in a lot of college towns, but oftentimes you see the transplants who are in leadership, who are kind of over dominating the conversation, and then the folks that were born and raised in a community who know how to tap into those invisible networks, that have those connections that have been fostered since grade school. They just feel kind of compelled to leave, to seek an opportunity. And so, one of the things that I've personally been really wanting to see more and wanting to support, and I guess move resources towards those efforts that are homegrown. And in those instances, it's been really like powerful for people to say, I'm like fighting for this place. This is where my grandma, my grandpa, like, they did this, they fought for this, and I'm continuing that legacy. I'm building upon that legacy, or I want to do things differently because they couldn't. Like, those are the types of stories that really, really move me the most.
Can you tell us a little bit about Griffin Blvd Archives and what made you co-found that, and what a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like, you got me reflecting on a whole lot of, my mind was even. Getting me. I'm like, I'm sitting here like a little sentimental because that is an issue, and also I struggle with that myself as someone who did leave my hometown. I guess it's a good segue. Like, I'm not. I guess I split my time between Charlottesville and Farmville. I'm back home. I'm back home a lot. But Griffin Blvd Archives has become a way for me to continue to be involved and help advance issues and cultural work that's happening back home. It's been interesting. A lot of the connections I've made has been connecting folks back home to the abundance of resources here in Charlottesville. Like,
love that.
We're doing some like environmental justice, cultural heritage advocacy work back home, and one of the things that my partner and I were able to do is to connect my cousins to pro bono legal counsel from UVA Law School.
No kidding.
That's lit.
And so there was no way they would have been able to afford the type of legal representation that was needed. But through our networks here in Charlottesville, we have a whole team of some of the nation's top attorneys driving an hour out, to help support, rural Black residents whose, environmental health and cultural resources are under threat because of extractive and toxic industry. So Griffin Blvd Archives was something that my cousins and I started, and it came out of this desire to make sure that we remain connected to our home place, regardless of where we were. That the culture was being sustained, that the stories are being preserved, and that our extended families and connections had what they needed in order to maintain and sustain these home places. And so, over the last several years, I've been really proud of some of the things that we've been able to do, even as we continue to face challenges. I don't even think we have time to get into some of the things that are going on back home right now, but I think it is connected to Charlottesville in the sense that we're seeing a lot of these industries decide to locate, not in Charlottesville, not even Albemarle County, because they know the type of pushback they'll get. So they'll out of a desire to be proximate to Charlottesville and Richmond and DC,
right?
They'll focus on the counties, the rural areas in between these. They urban
love a data center. Okay.
Exactly.
I feel like I just read an article that says like Virginia has like one of the most data centers being built ever.
I think more is coming.
Exactly.
Research too.
Exactly. And so
you can only put them in the rural areas.
Exactly. So like what Griffin Blvd Archives is trying to do is show people there's another path that helps us preserve our history and culture, and actually uses that as a resource to be built upon to drive economic development versus the industries that are going to harm our environment, that are going to violate our human rights. Well, I mean, so right now the big thing in Farmville is the fact that there is an ICE detention center.
Is that right?
Yeah, like being built or built already?
That has been built. That many have advocated for its closure.
Yeah.
But so you have you have an ICE detention center in Farmville. My Buckingham family is from Union Hills, so we had the pipeline coming through. That part of Buckingham where my family lives. We're seeing all these data centers be built in Cumberland County, where the part of Cumberland where my mom's family is from. There's a 1,200 acre landfill being proposed, and so
environmental racism is crazy.
Exactly, and so I guess if I had to boil Griffin Blvd Archives down to one thing, it's really trying to push back against these efforts and showing that our culture and history is not only worth preserving, but it is a resource, like a true resource with economic potential, and don't destroy something before it's been able to be leveraged to its fullest potential. And that's kind of been the message we've been working to get across, but it's still a lot of challenges. But the name itself, I mean, you talk about like parallels. So Griffin Blvd is the part of Farmville where, so I grew up in the county, but I grew up in town. We have cousins, and my house was here, but I spent all my time here.
Sure. Yeah,
so, I grew up in town too, and so the part of town where my family is from is the area where my great grandfather Reverend Jake, I mentioned earlier, had founded a church. It was kind of the historic core of Farmville's black neighborhood, and most of that neighborhood is gone. As the university has expanded, historically was using eminent domain in the late 60s and 70s. A lot of families have been displaced. I've had relatives that have had to move. But Griffin Blvd, that street is named after one of our preeminent civil rights leaders, Reverend L. Francis Griffin. And is also a reminder of what was there. It's similar to Charlottesville's Vinegar Hill. So yeah, we're seeing these things happen all across the country, but particularly in Virginia, in rural communities, in small towns and black towns. There's a pattern of us constantly being targeted and displaced.
Now I'm sitting here thinking, where is everybody's Vinegar Hill? Yours is Griffin Blvd. I'm sitting here thinking Orange. I know Orange got one.
Listen.
Yeah. Where is it?
Yeah. That's a good.
What got raised?
It's a good book.
No, I'm like, we all got a Vinegar Hill. Everybody's got a Vinegar Hill. It's impossible not to.
And that's something, if Lorenzo Dickerson and Jordy Yeager.
Sure.
I think, and I hope they do this. There is an opportunity for them to shed light on the Vinegar Hills in other communities across Virginia and probably across the country. We know they exist, and
sure.
The part of Farmville, there's some beautiful, incredible, very powerful journalism that Longwood University students are producing right now. And I'm sad I can't remember their names at the moment, but they have a series where these students are digging deep into the archives and are investigating this history of Longwood University's expansion into Farmville's black neighborhoods, and it's been emotional, honestly, because they're uncovering things that I didn't even know. And like for the first time, I'm seeing images of like the church that my great great grandfather founded that had to be torn down and relocated. You know, seeing the street and the structures of the homes that, you know, my grandmother grew up in. Like I had never seen photos of those things. And so yeah, shout out to the Rotunda Online if folks want to check out that series. You know, these young people are doing the work to shed light on this history, and connecting the dots to today, which is important.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm over. I gotta get to work. I gotta get into Google. I gotta start Googling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I need to know. Now I need to know because you got yours. You didn't found yours. You know where it is. I have no idea. I know it's got to be there. All you do is find the highway.
Do you know where you think it would be?
Well, my thought is always the highway, the closest highway, or because that's how eminent domain work. They run a highway right through 250.
Well, you know, you have a point track. Though. Look at the government, right? So look at the government sites and structures. So, you know, state parks have contributed to black displacement. Government buildings that have been constructed have often contributed to black displacement. So, like in the instance of Longwood University, I could blame Longwood University, but Longwood is still to this day a state government institution. That was the state of Virginia. You know, that was the government that these families were paying taxes to turn around and then saying, you know, thank you for helping to sustain us, and we're going to take your property.
We need this.
Yeah. So that's a state government.
That whole Abrego Garcia case is in Farmville.
Yeah. Yep. He's in Farmville right now.
That's wild. Let me do my plug, and then I got a question for you. If you are jumping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price and Markey here with Justin Reid. Big thanks to our sponsor, Jefferson School Foundation, jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. Do you find that in your work and a lot of your experience that, you know, it sort of bridges the unintentional gap between, like, so you mentioned that, like, the nuance of you saying, I don't find myself terribly interested in history, but I'm interested in culture, which obviously is sort of like a mosaic of all these other historical figures, in the same way that I'm assuming the answer to the question I'm going to ask you, which is like, are you interested in politics, is like, no, but race and culture as they connect to history.
I'm very interested in politics.
Okay, so do you find that, do you make that distinction or do you not? So like what we're talking about here, we talk about things like detention centers are a cultural issue, and they're also a race issue and a place issue, but also in today's era, a political issue. Can you separate them? Should they be separated? How do you think about that?
No, I think I don't see them as separate things. It's all connected. I guess just let me back up and say, like, obviously I'm into history. Like, it's like I can't,
we knew it. We got him. We got him.
Yeah. But I guess the thing that I always push back against, like, for some folks are like into history just for the sake of knowing the facts
stuff.
And the dates and the names and wanting to rattle off. Like, they don't see the connection.
That's right. I can name all the constitutional amendments. Like, all right, cool, for what?
And I'm not interested in that kind of history. I'm interested in history, but I'm particularly interested in history that helps us better understand what's happening right now.
Sure.
Or helps connect the dots, or can be used as a resource or tool to advance something now, advocate for something now. And so I guess my interest in history really is looking at history as a tool.
Okay.
And a tool that has the ability to advance some type of contemporary issue or address some type of contemporary injustice. And so, you know, when I think about, I mean, just rattling off, you know, that history around Griffin Boulevard, or even here in Vinegar Hill, I think one reason why that history is important is because then it becomes the receipts to advance a policy that will redress something that's happening right now. And so, you know, we talk about, you know, economic investments in individual families and communities. Sure. Then there's all of this evidence that explains why that is necessary. And so that's when I get excited about history, when I can really see that it could be used for good right now. Yeah, it's all connected.
Do you think that I remember, and we probably connected over this was years ago, but at the work in Montpelier and that's sort of the
yeah, you taking us back. That was no, because Price and I, we have some history.
Y'all both in Montpelier?
Mm-hmm. Well, we were both like solidly in like the cultural heritage sector.
Yeah, and so that's a lot of what at its best I think Montpelier was trying to do. It was trying to connect past to present in a way that was relevant and that made sense and that used, obviously, historical context to inform a lot what was happening there. And so a lot of the work that we did together revolved around constitutionality of modern day issues. And obviously 2017 happened when we were out there and I was out there and we were doing a lot of that work. Do you, and you who have stayed in it and done more of it than me certainly, do you feel like we have done a good job of that, of leveraging history as a teacher, or do you think we kind of use it? It kind of feels like the joke I always used to make was that the first time I remember I was like 11 years old and it was like one of the good Kanye albums before things kind of went off the rails, but one of the early ones, and it was I mean, a lot
make
of
you sad that those Kanye albums are so good.
Yes,
like,
it does.
They get
like, can I play this with the windows down?
I think you still can.
Can I listen to College Dropout with the windows down?
I think you can, because that's universally loved.
Okay.
I think that's a situation, and I don't say this often, that you can separate
art from artist.
I don't usually do that.
Really?
But I think it depends.
Or
on
you
what
could say, if you don't like Kanye, you're being ableist, because he's been very forthcoming
about mental health.
Yeah, he's been very forthcoming about.
It's very true.
That he's working through.
But I think with that is that there are things that your disability or mental health or doesn't make you okay for you to do. I think that's the part. It's like you can still hold him accountable regardless of if he has vocally told us about his mental health or disabilities. So that's the part that but I haven't. Okay. But I think you don't got to be tweeting about listening to it. You don't got to be. You don't got to share it on your Instagram story. You know,
it doesn't have to be a thing.
It doesn't have to be a thing. Just listen because it's good. Not
you don't have to make a point about it. Just do it because you enjoy it.
And if you're making a point about it, I think you're making a point
for a reason.
Yes.
To then do the thing. Okay, that's interesting. I was going to ask because I remember listening to when Gold Digger came out, and it's a Ray Charles sample, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that. I'm 10.
Take your money.
Exactly. And I'm like, and my mom's singing it, and I'm like, how do you know this song? And she's like, honey, this is not your music. This is my music. Right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, do you think that historically and contextually and sort of culturally we do enough of that, of understanding that like many of the eras that we live in or go through are sort of amalgamations of bygone eras? Like, this is not new. Yeah. This is a combination of a lot of things, but we view it as like, wow, this is the first time anything like this has ever happened.
Do we
do enough? I mean, do we leverage enough of historical context to like take cues from it?
Yeah, absolutely not. We don't. But a lot of times I feel like it's not necessarily our fault because of the way history is taught and understood. A lot of times, it prevents us from seeing the necessary parallels or the helpful context. So like, I'll give an example. Like, I've benefited from having a deeper understanding of some of the civil rights litigation history, which is often overlooked. Like, we talk about Brown v. Board of Education as if the Supreme Court woke up one day and decided to desegregate schools.
Sure, yeah.
There was no, right. And there were
a lot of people don't know that's a class action.
There was decades, yeah, exactly. There was decades of work preceding that decision.
Yeah.
A lot of families working on those cases, and then even after it was passed, it took decades of subsequent litigation to even enforce it. And so, when I see like some of the court battles happening right now, and I see people like laid out on the floor, like everything is over. In my mind, I'm like, well, we're gonna be in court for a while.
Yeah, that's right. Sure. That's right. Yeah.
And I think like having that perspective, when you lose these battles legally, but you got to keep showing up in the courtroom. You got to file the appeal. You got to frame the case differently. That's the type of kind of historical context and understanding that I think is really helpful, because it shows you like how long these fights for positive change truly are, and how difficult they truly are. Like, I remember even when we had the incident 4 years ago with teachers in the tip line, and our educators were being threatened if they taught about.
I'm Me and Price, we were trying to get the words. I was looking at him.
I was getting there.
Okay, I was trying to get there.
Yes, y'all remember like all of our teachers were like afraid, to talk about history in the classroom because they didn't know if they would, I don't know, get jailed. Like I don't know, it was a wild time, and I was very sympathetic, and at the same time, I was like, wow, I wish these educators knew more of the teacher activism that was happening historically, because then maybe they would find glimmers of hope, and also realize that what they're going through right now, while hard, can be overcome, and also compared to some past things, it's a different level of threat. And so
sure,
when we don't teach those parts of the history, we often think everything we're experiencing right now is insurmountable, or we oftentimes what I feel like we don't necessarily even know the strategies to confront what's happening now, because the history we've been taught has only focused on individuals, doesn't talk about the collective efforts, doesn't talk about the difficulties and the strategies. We focus on the names and the dates, and the great men oftentimes, and those lessons do us a disservice today. There's a political scientist, Jeannie Thiel Harris, who's incredible, and she wrote this book. It's called A More Beautiful and Terrible History: The Uses and Misuses of Civil Rights History, and she talks about all the ways, the way we understand this history actually diminishes our power today.
Like what? What is it? Like what is like a big learning from that?
That makes sense. Like
yeah. I mean, so it's like she has a list of things. And it's like some of the things, like one that like
probably MLK.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's the one that come to mind.
Sure. Yeah. Like framing this narrative around one individual is something that diminishes our power today, because we really need to know, the collective power that we have, but we don't get taught really. The understanding that organizing and activism is a multi-pronged thing, because we're taught a history that focuses on direct action, but we don't talk about litigation a lot of times, or how to navigate the court system. We don't talk about how there are different roles for different people, because we have young people today that think activism is simply posting a picture of yourself on social media with a sign.
That's right.
And your fist in the air.
That's right.
It's blackout pictures.
Or that.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, I remember that one. Wow.
Yeah. And so like just there are like other things she mentions too, like this myth that racism only exists in the South.
That's killing us.
Yeah. Or that the only challenges we face are like the most overt, kind of violent types.
Yeah.
So I highly encourage her work, but when I read it, I was like finally. So I used to work at a museum in my hometown. It's a civil rights museum, and I had the privilege of being like the first educator there, the museum educator. And I made a decision that, okay, we have all of these exhibits. People will walk around and get the names and the dates and the pictures. What type of education are we going to provide, particularly our young people? And so I made a decision to focus on, people call it project-based learning. Some people call it action civics. And so, to this day, I haven't been there in 10 years, but it continues. When you come to the Moton Museum, young people, regardless of age, are learning community organizing strategies. And they're taking a contemporary issue, whether it's in their community or in their school, and applying these strategies like on site where, these young people 60, 70 years ago were organizing. Young people today are coming there and learning how to apply those lessons to today. And so like Jeannie Thiel Harris talks about the fact that those are the types of strategies that aren't being passed down, that are critical for us to learn. So yeah, I don't always fault us for not applying the lessons, because I feel like a lot of times, the films, the documentaries, whatever standards of learning don't emphasize those things. It's very easy for somebody to think history is one exceptional individual in every single decade doing something really great that then changed the whole country. And it was fairly easy once people like kind of caught on. And yeah,
that's a thing. Isn't that a thing? It's called like a great man theory of history or something.
Yeah.
That like every like history is really shaped by like a few people.
Yeah.
Last question for you, because we know you gotta get out of here. What advice would you give to the youth in our communities now, moving forward into this new era, to get it right?
Now, what do we consider to be youth?
I'm youthful.
Are we still youthful?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I mean, all of us. Like maybe not the youth. I mean, I speak to them particularly, but maybe it's all of us. What can we all be doing? What is your advice to us, to our communities? What should we be doing right now to make sure that in 20 years we're not looking back and saying we dropped the ball on this?
Oh Lord.
Are we doing it?
That's a great question. I mean, oh gosh, there's so many things.
I mean, to your point, and to sort of crystallize that, when we talk about history, I don't think a lot of people know that much, like a lot of the movements were young people, And so is there, I mean, even something as basic as that, of like, even if we talk, I mean, we can agree that like, okay, the prominent civil rights characters were certainly not the entirety of the work, right?
Yeah.
But even so, do we know that they were young? They were young. They were young.
I already told you that story we heard when we were on the historical tour. A person was so young that they was like, why are you here? And they said, I'm here for Tatum. They was too old to say freedom. That's the story I remember. It's like kids was in, we're talking about children.
Yeah. Even the leaders were in the early 20s.
Yeah. You forget. They look very old.
Yeah.
The era of the mustache.
Oh, the mustache is aging these men.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's so many things I would say. I guess depending on what I was focusing on. I mean, if I'm thinking about like history and like family history, I would tell a young person to get out your cell phone and record the oldest member of your family right away. Like don't wait.
That's good.
Like just do it. Like
interesting.
Like just start asking as many questions as possible, or even just record them saying anything and having their voice captured. But I know for a long time, like I was hung up on like the technology. Because I had been trained in oral history, and so I was like, all right, well, now, I got to do it by the book, and so I got to have these things in place.
Okay.
Technology has evolved, but also you really just need your cell phone. Like you don't need the most.
We could do this on a cell phone.
You just need your cell phone right now. People are making whole films with cell phones. Like just grab your cell phone at your next family event. Put your relative on FaceTime, hit record or something. If you can and capture that, to this day, like my most prized possession is an interview that I did with my grandma and with my mom's oldest brother. Are my two most prized possessions. Like if they weren't digitally saved, like if I was grabbing things in a fire and it was like VHS, I would find those VHS tapes. And then I think I would tell young people is to like find your crew, find your team. It's easy to think that one person can make a change. That's a very cliche thing, but the reality of history is that really like a small group of people that are committed working together can make a change. Like we always say, one person can make a change. Yeah, but it's like a lot of individuals really. One person's. But like find your crew. Find the folks that are going to ride with you and make sure that, you're not in it alone. I mean, I think that's one of the things we often see with people even being like burnt out or targeted and things not continuing because somebody is taking a step back or can't be involved, like things dwindle. But when you have that collective, that's when things can be sustained and that's when it becomes more powerful. Yeah, get outside. I think too.
Go outside.
Get back outside.
Yeah, but not even not just like be outside. Like, I think more young people would benefit. And I'm thinking about like kids in my own family. Like just be outside with technology for a little while. Yeah, and like sit with yourself, sit with like your thoughts. Like, I think that's advice for adults too, and something I need to remind myself. But like, I feel like very seldom do we take enough time to, you know, maybe the word is meditate. Like, we could go outside and meditate.
I think we all needed that advice.
Yeah.
I think we all that we are. I mean, in the time of people's life, we are young. All of us are
Sure. Yeah. And listen to, do you remember that podcast we did on Billionaire? American Descent with Kelly?
I do.
Yeah. Because that was the last time I remember. We walked around the museum. And
Price has been to my hometown.
I have.
I gave him a little mini tour. It was a quick because it was a small town.
Yeah. So that I was just trying to find it. It still exists. Look up American Descent, and there's an episode about the Moton Museum and about all that history.
Yeah.
Which was fun.
Google, Moton. Yeah, Moton. We say Moton. Some people say Moton.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of times, the Moton story, people have boiled it down to Barbara Johns, the 16-year-old leader of the strike in 1951. But even she, like, this is the thing, like, she didn't do it on her own. She was brilliant in the sense that she recognized that she needed a collective. And so it was a committee of 20 students who were organizing and really helping to pioneer the civil rights movement in Virginia and the country. You know, it started with 20.
Look, that's incredible. Before you go, how do people get in touch with sort of you or your work, or how do they learn more about Griffin Blvd, or you know, I mean, if that's what you're after, right? How do people engage with what you got going on?
I mean, I think if you're thinking about the history and cultural work, you know, that's online. Kind of Google that stuff.
Use your resources,
you know,
family.
My current day job at the Community Foundation, you know, that's available online as well. It's cacfonline.org. Yeah, definitely follow the Community Foundation on social media. I think pretty much everywhere.
You got to do a little legwork for yourself.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Justin. If you guys have ideas for the show or want to get in touch with us, make sure you follow us on social media at United Way Cville or at City of Promise. And the inbox is open and vision at unitedwaycville.org for other guests or other folks who we should speak with. We get support on the show from our wonderful community here in Charlottesville. If you have ideas or you want to, make a contribution to any of our lovely local nonprofits, City of Promise, the United Way of Greater Charlottesville, Charlottesville Community Foundation, we accept time, talent, treasure. That's how we keep doing our community-based work, and of course, this show. You can find new episodes every week. Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. Share with your friends, share with your colleagues, share with your family, enemies, whomever. It's a big tent. Big thanks again to our sponsor and friend, the Jefferson School Foundation, jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. For Justin and Marky, this is Price. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Go
you.
Tribe.
Thank you.
Thank you.